I'm only panicking a little bit. So if I fall down, it's okay. I just fainted. I'll get right back up. Actually, Ellen promised to catch me, and I really appreciate that. So I chose that particular scripture passage today because I thought it would fit really well with my theme, which is following God's direction. What exactly does that mean? Well, in Noah's case, it meant building a boat large enough to fit Texas in it when the skies were probably blue and it was sunny and beautiful without really asking for an explanation. Just trusting that when the big picture came into focus, the reason would be revealed. And like it talks about in Scripture, it was. God explained what he was doing. And that because Noah did what was asked of him, his family was going to be protected. Noah's story is not unique either. Many of the most well-known Bible stories have that recurring theme of unwavering faith and trust in God or in Jesus. While it might be difficult to understand or accept the idea of receiving a direct request of that magnitude from a divine source, I do embrace the concept that this divine being does have a plan and a purpose for me, complete with a vague map and a set of directions that don't seem to make sense when looked at piece by piece, but manage to get me exactly to the right place if I just follow them. More importantly, for me, I know how uncomfortable it can be to ignore the signs that pop up, some big and some small, urging me in a particular direction if I go off course. I like to refer to these periods of spiritual stagnation as avoiding eye contact with God, because they remind me of being caught doing something wrong as a child and refusing to look my dad in the eye, believing that as long as I didn't see the anger and disappointment reflected in his gaze, no crime had been committed. In those tense moments before I inevitably looked up, I can remember my little stomach would be twisted in knots, and my thoughts would be racing a mile a minute, trying desperately to focus on anything other than the problem at hand. Similarly, there are times in my life when I blatantly ignore what I know in my heart is God's direction because I don't like where it seems to be taking me. I will feel God tapping me on the shoulder saying, "Hey, don't go that way, go this way." And because the path I've chosen for myself is paved and well lit with signs clearly marking the route, whereas the road God is urging me to turn down is gravel, dimly lit, and seems to have a twist or a turn every 50 yards, I pretend I didn't get the memo. So I will go on about my business, seeking any and all distractions to fill up my time and my thoughts, all in the hopes of drowning out that quiet but steady voice inside me that is saying, "Stop and listen. You need to hear what I have to say." The longer I do this, the more my anxiety increases and the less comfortable I feel in my own skin. Sooner or later, just as when I was young, the racing thoughts in my head will run out of steam, right around the time that my body gives in to exhaustion from all the calculated busyness that I've used to fill up my time, and I'm forced to confront the truth. And that's truth with a capital T, because it feels giant, and staring me in the face. And being the good daughter that I am, the moment that I see the message, hear it, feel it, and know it, I'm compelled to listen. The most recent example of this in my life happened just about 6 months ago at the end of this past year. As many of you know, when I joined this church, I was planning on moving to Florida, which is where most of my dad's family lives. It's where I was born. It was a decision that was a year in the making, with all of the appropriate thinking and praying and planning behind it. I was so excited. No more winter, no more shoveling. I was thrilled. By the beginning of October, I had made arrangements to move in with my cousin, whose friend said she could get me a part-time job right away. I'd given away about half of my possessions, including all my furniture, because I was intent on taking only what I could pack in my car. And although I knew I was going to miss my family, my many friends across the state of Illinois, and this wonderful church community where my spiritual self had finally found a home, I was looking forward to a new chapter in my life, a new adventure, a warm winter, and the beach, sunshine, palm trees. Then something awful happened. My best friend's son, and my best friend is the office manager here, was diagnosed with stage 4 neuroblastoma on November 1st of last year, just 6 weeks before my planned departure date. I knew in my heart that I couldn't leave, at least not while he was undergoing treatment. I wanted to be there for Dana and Sebastian and the rest of the family. And I needed to be there for them. So I decided to postpone my move until the spring of 2012. And when I made that choice, a quiet voice whispered in my head, maybe this chapter isn't over yet after all. I did what any sane person would do. I ignored that voice. After all, who wants to admit they hear voices? Not this girl. So, satisfied for the moment, if not entirely comfortable with my decision, I set about rearranging my life to face this challenge. After all, the place I'd been living was only supposed to be temporary. I no longer had any stuff with which to furnish my own apartment. So I found a new place to stay, and I dedicated myself to helping the Major family any way I could. About a month after Sebastian's treatment, I went to visit my mother for our annual birthday celebration. She wasn't feeling well, so we didn't do much but relax and catch up. I was a little worried about her, but, she gets sick a lot, so I didn't think about it too much. About a week later, I got a message from my brother, not a phone call, I might add, a text message from my brother, telling me that my mom was going to the emergency room because she hadn't kept any food or any medication down for 3 days. And when her home health nurse visited her and saw my mom's weakened condition, she recommended she go to the hospital immediately. The next few weeks was a whirlwind of activity and emotions as my mom went from the hospital to home to a nursing home. The doctors were unsure if she was suffering a temporary psychosis or had early onset dementia because she could no longer speak a full sentence or have a coherent conversation. And all we could do was wait and see and hope. Throughout this time, that quiet voice in my head that had been whispering all along steadily grew louder. "You are needed here," the voice said. "It is not yet time for you to go." And all the while, I kept trying not to think about it, focusing my attention and energy on anything I could to distract me from reflecting on my future. After all, once these crises passed, it was going to be fun in the sun for me every day for the rest of forever. That was my plan. Right? Come on, God, I earned this. Are you listening to me? So this is how I felt, It turns out the answer is that I was being ignored. He wasn't listening to me. I guess it's only fair I was ignoring him, so we're even. When my mom finally came out of her state of cognitive impairment, the answer that I'd been trying not to hear all this time became crystal clear to me. Despite my careful planning and preparation, the safe road that I'd been traveling on had disappeared without warning, and all that was left was this mysterious dirt path that cut through a forest of fear and doubts, casting shadows in every direction. But this is where it gets good. Sometimes life gets so busy and full of daily routine tasks that I forget how good it feels and how brightly I shine when I connect to that part of me Deep inside, that is God, that pure, unconditional love and trust that pours out into my actions in the form of a spiritually principled existence whenever I allow it to. That is what happened when I stopped, looked God in the eye, and saw the truth. That no matter how much my mind and body said they were tired of Illinois winters, my spirit had other ideas. And in the 5 months since I surrendered to that realization, my life has changed dramatically. I've become a member of the CLB here at CUCC. I've met an amazing woman. I've begun the process of going back to school, and I've rediscovered the joy of following God's direction, allowing my actions to be dictated by my desire to love unconditionally and reach out to those spiritually and physically in need instead of being motivated by my own fear or selfish desires. And the resulting peace that I feel inside is something that I am unable to fully describe with words alone. I suspect this is a feeling many members of this congregation can relate to. After all, what drew me here, aside from the office manager being my friend and the giant rainbow flag waving outside that let me know I would be welcome here and not just tolerated, was the overwhelming sense of care and concern that radiates from this community. In the year that I've been coming to CUCC, I have watched its members rally behind many worthy causes, as well as providing every type of support imaginable to members and staff in need. If that isn't proof that we as a church community are doing our very best to follow the path of love and understanding that Jesus' example paved for us, I don't know what is. There have been many times in my life where I just followed along with the status quo, taking the next step that made sense and allowing money or power or fear to motivate me. I won't lie and say that I was completely miserable during those periods, but I can honestly say that I, and consequently my life, felt more than a little empty. Today I might make a lot less money and own a lot less stuff, but I feel spiritually full. And I'm eager to share that fullness with everyone that I meet. We recognize some members today for having reached important milestones in their lives, from graduating high school to turning 85. As I travel in my life from one milestone to another, I want to be able to look back on the time past and know that I've held on to that spiritual high that I have right now and done my very best to live a God-centered life of giving unconditional love and taking charitable actions. As you leave today and go out into the world, I want you to reflect on your own lives. Are you financially rich but spiritually poor? Is there a tiny voice whispering in your ear to make a change that you just don't think you can make? Do you see bright, bold signs pointing for you to take the left fork in the road that you ignore to stay on the familiar, comfortable right fork? These are the questions I ask myself every day that help me stay open-minded enough to see God's direction and be brave enough to follow it, one baby step at a time.